Beardy and the Beast, the second wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Welcome to the second wall, binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small chunks. This time we are looking at Joss Whedon's sci-fi classic, Firefly. We can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch the episode and then join Drew and I in the mess as we explore the verse. Okay, so apparently this was the original episode 2.
This is episode 4.
Yeah, they aired it super out of order.
It wouldn't be a bad episode 2.
Episode 1 was aired episode 11.
That's weird.
Yeah, Serenity was episode 11. Okay, then.
I don't know. All I know is they did something in this episode that I just absolutely hate.
Oh?
When it's a free floating perspective or point of view in space, and it does something like has a lens flare, or in this case, it unfocused and then focused itself. There was a point of view that was neither of the ships that like altered focus when it connected the booby trap, and they ended up reusing it from a different, slightly different angle, slightly closer up later on. But I really didn't like that. But it did make me realize that the graphics are kind of holding up.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, they're not bad.
I was quite impressed. I'm not sure how much of this was CGI, how much of it was miniatures, or if any of it was miniatures for that matter.
I don't think they do a lot of minis. I think a lot of the stuff in this is either computer or full scale. Because there's a full scale Serenity that they made.
Yeah, that's right, because they used that in the movie. I remember that. Yeah, but a lot of those outside shots are not going to be...
No. Well, I mean, inside was the full scale.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely holds up, though. I actually heard that one of the reasons why a lot of the stuff doesn't hold up is actually based on the resolution of the TVs at the time. There's no reason to have higher scaled graphics because it wasn't being transmitted anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of hold up, now, I'm not a super big fan of the Firefly series as a whole. I've said it a bunch of times. It was an okay first season. Season 4, if it had made it that far, would have been excellent. Would have been top tier. It is definitely over exaggerated how good Firefly is. But one thing that it's doing significantly well as from an enjoyment factor and from a series factor is it's actually keeping up and holding up with the time. So this is what, 20 years old now?
Yep.
And it's not dating itself per se. Maybe thematically in some of the things that were popular back in 02 to 05 might be showcased here, which kind of did it. But I mean, the language, the way it's shot, the feeling, the emotion, none of it is lost with the passage of time, even 2 decades, which has been really nice. I'm not saying I enjoyed it anymore, but what I'm saying is it's not that I'm enjoying it any less than I did originally.
Well, that's good, because I know before we decided to take on Firefly, that was something you had concerns with. I never had those concerns, but...
I am being pleasantly surprised.
I can definitely... I mean, I'm coming around a little bit to the... Probably that it's a bit more overhyped than should be, but I think again, there's just a lot of potential there, and everything they've had so far has been fairly solid.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a strong consistency that we see with the characters, with the worlds.
Well, the thing that we hit at this point is, um, it's not even a case of could have been, because of how long it's been. It's more a case of never was.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
Um,
I would say it's stronger than most series that started coming out around that time.
hmm. I mean, again, Whedon was kind of on the top of the TV game at this point. Uh,
It's not the only thing he was on top of.
Talking about some charismatic carpenters.
And others. Yeah, that's an interesting fall, but I guess that's a topic for another day. But
Yeah.
not surprised that the Hollywood type ended up being weird.
Yeah.
Kind of the way that it goes. We'll have Ashley into rant about them all. Seems like she knows all the stories.
She really does. I'm sure we'll find something weird for her to go off on. But world building, character building. We've got episodes to talk about.
Oh yeah, okay. Honestly, I didn't see much in the way of world building in this one. Though there is a bit of the introduction of the Reavers as like a mind virus, like psychic damage, I guess you could say. Not in the way of like psychic powers, but like psychosis. So
Yes.
the replication of these Reavers as being essentially replicating by forcing people to witness their atrocities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I mean, like even just seeing the aftermath of it, like being forced to watch that, like yeah, no, I can easily see how that's going to drive someone mad enough to, completely break them like they did that poor guy.
Yeah.
I do think the only other little bit of world building we get is like, okay, we get a little bit of a feel for the Alliance, so we do know that they are actually doing like routine patrols even out in the rim. And there's clearly an idea of experience around it as well. Mal came across as he's had interactions with the Alliance and Reavers before, and the Alliance knew what to do. Whereas they had to basically, the only reason this guy did was because, he dealt with the Reaver firsthand. So I guess showing that bit of procedure. Again, I do think it's interesting just seeing things like the scale of the ships. Like you have these two transports, which again, very much designed after like horses, and then just this massive, city ship. Like I mean, it's designed like skyscrapers. So it's interesting design choices that split it up nicely.
Even so, like they even referenced the scale of the ship, like and the tour as being large enough and long enough for it to warrant having a nursery.
Yeah. Speaking of that, they also had world building just around what it's like out in the rim. Even though we didn't really get the deal with the characters on the derelict directly, you can say it's like, okay, no, they're overcrowded. They've turned this ship that should be something to get you to the moon and back, and that's about it, into this long range ship because desperate times. Overcrowding to the point that like the lifeboats wouldn't have been able to do anything.
Well, it's one that's more of a like an overarching universal theme that they're expanding upon right now. The I don't know if it was in this episode or one of the movies, but he's saying how like Captain Reynolds says how his sky is getting more crowded every day. It's kind of like the central planets and people are pushing outwards to where the wilds are supposed to be because they have nowhere else to go. And how they're not getting support from like the central governments at all, and everyone kind of like has no choice but to push out to survive.
Yeah. I don't remember it being said in this episode, but I do definitely remember that bit you're talking about. They're consistent at showing that theme and that just the desperateness between no, not desperateness, disparities between the core worlds and the rim worlds and other things like, and again, the most valuable thing on that ship again was the food. That was immediately what they all went for. Overall, again, they're just really good at keeping it feeling like, well, it is the Wild West and it is rough out here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's rough, and it has a way of life
Mhm.
that people are accustomed to on like the rim planets and the outer planets that those from the central planets don't seem to understand.
Mhm. Which is also actually shown really well with Simon as well. Like both Simon and the Alliance kind of showed that
Mm-hmm.
in this episode. Um,
What
but
I what I found interesting, to kind of push and transition, um, the whole, are you going to put River front and center, and then
mhm,
Book stepping in.
mhm,
So he's already quickly come to the realization that um, Mal's plans and strategies are good,
mhm.
and in a case of emergency, it's actually probably the best thing to do is to listen to him.
Yeah.
And that's over the course of what, like 2 episodes?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's having that recognition from Book is great because I mean, he was a sergeant. He's clearly got the loyalty of his crew, and
Hmm.
it's clear that he has it for a reason because he's not above, stabbing someone in the back if it needs to be. Like, I mean, these still aren't the good guys, as it were. It's thieves and scoundrels, and but
No,
he
well,
showed tactics. He's got the the knowledge, and he cares for his crew.
no, I do have one disagreement. They've shown pretty plainly that Malcolm Reynolds won't stab you in the back, even like figuratively.
Oh, you're right. I misspoke. um, that's just what came to my mind as I was talking about, thieves.
Yeah, yeah. The they didn't really expand too much on characters as far as like the theme of this episode and the characters of this episode. It really came off as um the captain's always right.
I think that definitely came up, but I think that's more. I think it's a good way of showing his experience in that regards. Uh, I actually was thinking that this is where we're starting to see a little bit more of River coming through now. That's what I was seeing a lot of in this episode because we're starting to see the psychic abilities kicking in, um, with her connections to just knowing that something was wrong on that ship. Um, talking about the ghosts, the waking up screaming as the quote unquote survivor is starting to mutilate himself. You're starting to see that, and then you're also following it up with that kind of like wonder, like she's re-seeing the universe for the first time, like, when she's outside of the ship, and just that kind of glee she had in her face.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's definitely making you wonder at this point, like what is exactly up with River? Like, um, is it just cut well, like the episode, or alternatively, is it a case of she's hyper perceptive, or she has a connection to the environment around her, like Sixth Sense sort of thing? Like exactly what is going on with River? It's beginning to make us ask those questions.
Yes.
And too bad her brother's still coming off as a perv to me.
He's
He's concerned with the physical well-being of his sister.
you're a terrible person.
No, there's something odd about his acting. I'm growing more comfortable with the portrayal of River, even though there's still a bit of Sharroning going on. But
Mm.
the transitions between the different mood states are a
Yeah.
whole lot smoother. Isn't the correct word. Like acting, it would be smoother, even though the shifts are abrupt. They make more
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that is, of course, like directing, editing. But like, I feel that we're beginning to actually see River portrayed as how she should be, rather than like assumptions made at the beginning of the series. Like
Yeah.
actually growing into the character.
Uh, yeah. There's a lot of little things I saw that I know again kick in later in the series. Just again in the way she moves, in the way she views the world. You even kind of see it when they're playing that basketball type game at the beginning of the episode. Just she's attentive, she's smart, and she's just got a connection.
Well, I mean, there's huge exposition in the first episode.
Mhm.
That pretty much lays it all out.
Yeah. I think I came to a little bit of a realization with Simon this time round.
Mm.
Um, I kind of think he also serves the role of trying to be the audience proxy. He's the one that the crew such is needing to explain things to.
So like a cabbage head.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense because um he does have some neutral mass like qualities, like as far as like his facial expressions go. He's dumb to the world that he's in, and there's nothing offensively bad about him,
Mhm.
except for the fact that he's a big pervo. But yeah, I agree. I'm wondering, they're either like trying to hide it, or it was just poorly written that way.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, given it's Whedon, I'll give him benefit of the doubt. And these projects are usually pretty okay. I would say that audience proxy, but they're kind of keeping it on the DL.
Yeah, and that's something that's kind of unique. He's not purely the audience proxy, which is not usually the case in a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still bringing other aspects in, just like conversations about the game. It's like, it's not civilized; it's just untamed. I have no idea what's happening. Just kind of those breaks as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he acts as that audience proxy, not under like just watching them suit up, and it's shot in a way of confusion, which would make sense from an audience proxy standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
not from someone who has space travel in their lives as a regular type thing, and just to help show the difference in the worlds. again, between the rim and the central planets, even though he's not necessarily the best at it. I think that's where they're trying to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the biggest thing I was finding there. One thing I did find really funny with Simon that I forgot to write down, but thought of it when him and Kaylee are looting the engine room. Like Kaylee's like told him that whatever it was, I don't even think she named what it was, and like basically hands it to Simon. And he just like drops. It's like, oh, clearly he's not someone who's ever worked with his hands in that way. I thought that was kind of cute to show that difference again. I think they went again. They show Kaylee and Jean's kind of brother sister type relationship was shown well again at the beginning of the episode.
I appreciate that. And that's not something that I really noticed in earlier watches of the series, was how close they do feel like brother and sister, to the point where they'll even say something and just like completely piss each other off, but be okay the next day, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see, and again, I don't think it's an easy thing to be able to write. I've seen that written badly a lot more, and I've seen it written well. It doesn't feel forced.
Well, that could be just an acting chemistry thing that's coming off as a sibling thing, like not explicitly written as such. So if they're allowed to play their roles some and actually get into acting with like just kind of a guide, and I mean sometimes it works out. So if we assume that's the case here, it's working out well, opposed to like the Little Hours where they just given so much freedom and a great cast, but then what was made of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible. It's just the chemistry. I want to lean towards it being written with that kind of intentional type of relationship, and they made sure they got the right actors for it. Because again, it's something that we see throughout Whedon's other works as well. You definitely get that family bond in Buffy as well, very strongly, even though none of them are family. So and it matches well with just how the crew of Serenity works. Like again, the mess scene in the first episode, it's like, no, it feels like a family dinner. So I think it's intentional, and they got the right people. I always enjoy seeing Jane just basically crap his pants at the mention of the Reavers.
I'd like to, like, there's these weird discrepancies with Jane's characters that like he's my favorite character in this series, but there's weird discrepancies right now where at points he seems very capable and very good at his job, to the point everyone recognizes this, and he's very brave at weird times, usually when he's annoyed, but then in certain other circumstances he's like a scared child.
Yeah, it's normally when he's that scared child again, we definitely see it with the Reavers. And
maybe it's pretty much, I guess it's fairly specific to mention of the Reavers. So I'm wondering what that relationship is, because he's from the outer planets. Like, it makes you wonder, did like a settlement that he was from get hit by Reavers, or has he encountered them before? Like, it's plain to see that he's not new to this type of work. And he's been with this crew at least for a moderate amount of time. So where does that fear come from?
Yeah, it's very true. It's like when we see his bit of, so yeah, because we don't really see fear with him around Niska.
No, that was
Right.
panic.
That was panic. But yeah, no, this is. It does make me wonder if he actually was a quote unquote survivor,
Mm.
because everything else seems to be. We know the stories of the Reavers. We've seen the aftermath of the Reavers,
Hmm.
but no one else freezes up in quite the same way. That would be something that would be neat to see them explore. Because yeah, it definitely feels like there was something else meant to be there beyond the, oh look, the tough guy is scared of this. Now you know it's bad. Which is, a fairly common trope.
Perhaps they're just leaning into that trope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty expressive. There's a reason why, like, shows and movies use it.
So I think like it's definitely not a bad trope. It's a good way to show that information quickly,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as effective when half the cast are effective combatants and you don't see two of them panicking quite the same way.
Well, you see Reynolds making plans and then Zoe just being, like, very stoic and very cool-headed.
Yes. And that could go back to them being military,
Mm.
but normally, and maybe that's it. Maybe that is just the trope they're trying to play into, but it feels weaker because of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I want to go give Whedon the benefit of the doubt, knowing what he's done when he's had time to do things. I do think that is setting up for something more, because he's not exactly like, generally he doesn't have characters panic like that, even in situations where they would, unless it's Xander. But like,
See, my thing about Whedon is less forethought and planning and more understanding what he's done in the past and building upon it and actually revisiting old themes and topics. And then, of course, like leaning into some things that obviously have good reactions.
mm,
But I mean, it's not coincidence. I think Whedon's ability is more in post rather than like precognition.
mm,
I mean, either way, it's a talent.
yes,
Whether or not you agree or disagree where it's coming from, like, it was a style that worked.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very true. I think another thing I actually found interesting with Jane and the crew here this time around, and I was trying to figure out, it actually might tie to that, is it panic around the Reavers now? Um, when he basically sent, when they all went to go and take care of the dead, and they sent Jane with them, and then the core ended up being um, Kaylee, Wash, Zoe, and Mal dealing with the trap. Um, and just no indication that they were ever going to tell anyone else about what happened. I did find it slightly interesting that Jane wasn't part of that. I'm not sure if that was just they figured he'd get in the way of them trying to fix it, or if he just wanted him with everyone else in the crew to kind of keep them safe just in case something else happened.
Well, I think part of it would have been strategic. There's nothing Jane could have added to help resolve it in a more efficient way. And it also, having Jane around the non-combatants aboard the derelict would also give them a sense of security and less panic.
Yeah.
Sure, they kind of poke fun at him at like the Reaver guy being smaller than expressed, but like I think there's only one person that would actually um step up to Jane like full fisticuffs, and it's probably Zoe.
Yep.
um, that being said, like the decision from a writing point of view made sense to me.
Yeah.
I didn't second guess it, and of course, like you also needed someone with physical ability who could get a specific job done, and I figure Jane's probably good at carrying stuff.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it wasn't a decision that I was questioning. It was more of a point of interest in seeing how the crew works. I mean, I guess you'd kind of see the same thing if it was a combat situation. They wouldn't have Kaylee there.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, that was the funny interaction in this one was when Anara comes up. It's like when I thought I was just getting or figuring you out, and then she leaves. And it's like, yeah, so we're booby trapped. It was just it was
nice
a nice
words,
little moment.
Captain.
Yeah.
Those are some real nice words, Captain. Yeah, it was a bunch of shit. Let's go. We got work to do. Oh my god, who's flying this thing? Again, just because that just goes and shows how the crew interacts with each other. They kind of we'll go with that, but they all can immediately switch to no, I've got to work now.
Mhm.
Like I was just saying with Wash there. Oh no, who's gonna fly this thing? We're all gonna die. Oh no, that's me. Time to work. um, it's
It's nice to have like a reliable, stable pilot who can fly anything. Who'll always be around.
yeah, it's true. Just like leaves in the wind.
Ah.
Hold on to that for later. Is the other bit of character stuff we got here, I think ties a lot more to is when they were detained by the Alliance.
Mm.
I think they just kind of they give basically all the characters like a single scene. It's like, yep, nope, that is how these people are in a nutshell. Zoe the stoic, Jane the what you gonna do about it. Wash is very in love with where the legs meet the small of the back and his wife.
The thing is, I mean, these are all things that had been like well established already, like these character moments.
Yeah.
So it was either purely included for the for time or just entertainment. Like there was no need for it.
It was. I think
it was just
there's
fun.
definitely the entertainment aspect of it. I mean, it's definitely memorable. Like
sometimes I fight with him too.
Yeah. But it's that idea of showing how people are when they're under duress again. Right. So we see Anara. She's composed. She's business savvy. She has an answer to everything. We see Kaylee's absolute, like almost autistic levels of focus on the ships and her ships. Like even when they're there for questioning, all she can do is talk about the ship and how dare they call it a hunk of junk.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I take away from those little quick scenes. I think, I mean, even Mal, it's that idea of knowing when to be confrontational, knowing when's like, no, really shouldn't be confrontational right now. There's worse things to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame the Alliance didn't listen to him.
Would have saved so many purple bellies. Like some fine, young, strapping young Alliance feds.
That's, I guess, kind of that other little bit of world building that we should talk on. They actually do show how scary the Reavers are. Like, look at the damage one did. I think the other thing they show off with Mal is his attentiveness, and that he does really care for his crew, regardless of disagreements or what have you with it. With how he acted when he noticed the helmet in the mess, making sure he's there to be a shield between Simon, River, and the Alliance.
Well, that's what they started establishing in episode 3. They had already started establishing Reynolds' acceptance of Simon and River as members of the crew. Like, it's definitely, you can tell from the way that it's portrayed. It's not just because it's a thorn in the Alliance's side. It's not just because he doesn't want to give the Alliance anything. It's in fact, that's not a primary focus at all. It really does seem like he's beginning to accept them as part of the crew.
Yeah.
Or family.
Yeah. And it's... I wonder if that's another part with Simon, too. I don't think Mal and the crew is given, well, except maybe Jane, has given Simon any reason to betray the trust of the Tams. But he is like, again, his immediate thoughts, and I know this continues for a bit, is just, oh no, you're just trying to betray us. There'd be some trust issues there.
Well, I mean, he abandoned, rightfully abandoned his family and his status because they just wouldn't recognize the danger that his sister was in. They were definitely on the Kool-Aid, and I bet you if you were to do a psych write-up about Simon, it'd be like, it's less so that he's afraid that he's going to be betrayed, but he's afraid that he's going to have to go through that same emotional tear that he had to go through with his biological family.
Yeah. I guess it's some of the trust issues bit too kind of comes from, this is just an issue with films in general. You don't always have a clear scale of how much time has passed. Right? So is this a few weeks later? Or is it several months later?
Well, this is the benefit of the second wall. Having people have to actually watch a thing and then listen to an inane discussion about some minutia and some probably bad taste jokes, and not just binge it all in one go. And it'd be easy to binge Firefly. It's not particularly long. The characters are intriguing. There's an overarching story. They're obviously developing towards something.
Yeah.
So having to slow down and digest helps show that passage of time. If you were to watch the first 4 episodes in one go, your reaction would be, well, they just got on board.
Yeah.
Have they been there 3 months? They've been there 2 months. 2.5 months.
I think I came to this number as well. I think I came to 3 to 4 months.
Well, it was 8 months. An hour had been there 8 months.
And now it's almost a year.
And now it's almost a year in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So it'd be
3.5 months.
Yeah. So it's a nice little benchmark, a little passage of time. I think I like subconsciously recognized that, but until it panned out here. I don't know why I was thinking there was 10 months in a year. Um,
So
but
everyone knows December and January don't exist.
the hashtag make Deca calendar, I think.
Uh,
Yeah, we'll get rid of dumb months like September and January.
um,
But yeah, so they've been there three and a half months.
yeah.
That's long enough for there to be some bonding, especially when there's no established like, oh, I watched The Hollow something, or we got movies on board. They really make it seem like there is some type of gathering, food consumption once a day. People only have each other to be around during that travel, and it's not like a whole mess of books and things about that it appears they read. So
Yeah.
how do they
Uh,
pass their time? Bonding by playing games.
Yeah. But I think that's where I think that's where kind of the trust issues that Simon has jumps out to me as a little bit weirder
Mm.
at this point. Because again, if we're binging it, this would just feel like, okay, it's maybe been a week or two.
Yeah.
No real reason to build trust. But what we get in this instead is still not going in and playing the games with the crew.
Well, he's more preoccupied, right? And like you don't know his level of being disconnected. I mean, we can only make assumptions of that state. I think it's more of a case is he hasn't been given the chance to show his link to the crew yet.
Mm.
But if say um I'll just even straight up say it, like if Jane took like a really bad wound, there would definitely be concern there, and it would be more, I think it'd be more than just Simon's a doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm specifically using the person who's most adversarial to make a point.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jane definitely helps that adversarial relationship.
Well, I mean, that being said, like at this point, if in the next episode, um, some jerk like stepped to Simon, I could see Jane stepping between them.
Oh yeah.
Just because Jane's a jerk doesn't mean he's not a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. It's just, yeah, it's one of those like, at what point are you going to trust the crew? But I guess we don't also know what happened in those couple of months. So,
Yeah.
again, or deep-seated trust issues for obvious reasons.
Well, that's the thing, and that's kind of where my point whereas going towards. I still don't see it as trust issues per se, but I do see it as not wanting to connect.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
resisting, like it's clear to me that he's resisting the connection.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah.
Yeah.
My point of view.
Yeah, that works. Mm.
It was a Firefly game,
Like
board game.
there is.
Yeah.
I knew there was the tabletop. There's a tabletop RP. Didn't know there was a different game. Assume you're talking about a different game.
I'd play a Firefly universe tabletop as long as it wasn't like not on the Serenity and like not directly related in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, parallel storyline maybe,
Yeah.
but I kind of it was that was the problem with the Farscape.
Mm.
It was very much like
First
trying,
game.
yeah, it was very much like, oh, you can play these characters.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want to be that race, but I don't want to be that character.
You've built some interesting universes. Let's play in the interesting universe.
Well, that's what Star Wars got right back when there was expanded universe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the good days.
Yep.
In the old world where things were better and people were happy.
Yeah. I'm sad now.
Fiend? Now that I've made you sad?
Yeah, I got nothing. Fiend sounds good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode, because we'll see how it grows. There is bonding that's going on. Actually, I do want to kind of expand upon that. You're not seeing it as a full crew, but you can see that the way that Simon's interacting with Anara, that he feels like there is at least some sort of sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't an arm's length conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
He connects with the only other civilized person on the ship.
I mean, are you going to connect with the unwashed masses? Come on now.
Kaylee's cute. Better to have Jane on your good side.
So what you're saying is it'd be bad if Jane tried to connect with you, but you want to connect with Kaylee?
Okay. Thanks again for huddling around the second wall with us here tonight. Join us next time as we continue our discussion of Firefly. Please join the conversation in the comments, on social media, or at our Discord, where we would love to get your thoughts. And of course, if you like what we do, please share us with your friends.